video, I'm going to recommend some low maintenance plants for beginners. These plants are perfect for anyone that is new to houseplants, or even if you're not new to houseplants, if you're like a traveler that's gone a lot, or you just need something in like a dark corner of your room, these plants are absolutely great because they are super low maintenance. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with none other than the Sansevierias. So here I have the variegated version of the Sansevieria, which is yellow and green. And then I also have the green Sansevieria, which is right here. So these guys, look how big they are. They're like covering the camera. Oh my goodness. Hopefully you guys get a good shot of them while I speak to you guys about their requirements. Okay, so the Sansevierias, these guys are really amazing because they're very modern looking. They give you a lot of like vertical dimension in any room. So I love these guys because they can tolerate low light settings. For example, a lot of these plants that I'm going to mention today, I actually keep in a very dark corner of my room, and so their light requirements are pretty low. That's not to say that you want to put it somewhere where it gets absolutely no light. It's good for a situation like in a bathroom if there's a very tiny bathroom window with some sunlight. That would be good for a Sansevieria, or if you have a very dark corner of your room that gets very minimal sunlight, that's also a good area. But the more light that you give these guys, they will thrive better, but they will tolerate low light settings. And then the watering requirements is probably my favorite. So these guys, you only have to water once a month. That's right, I said once a month. At least that's what I do. I water them and I let their soil get completely dry, and then I go ahead and water it like on the first of every single month. So these guys are super low maintenance. They're very succulent like, so they don't need too much water, and you do not want to overwater them because they can root rot. You know, these are plants that you don't want to water too often. So those are the Sansevierias. So up next is another plant that is very, very similar to the Sansevierias in terms of light and watering requirements. So let me go ahead and move these guys out of the way. So up next is the gorgeous little Zizzi plant. So these guys, again, are super, super, super low maintenance. They can tolerate low light just as well as the Sansevierias. If you're not in love with the Sansevieria foliage, I would say the Zizzi plant is another good option. The watering requirements are the same. Only water this guy about once a month. You definitely do not want to overwater this plant. So this is perfect for someone that tends to forget to water. Zizzi plants are perfect for that. So the reason they don't need much water is because actually in the roots, they have these like potato-like roots that are very thick that actually retain a lot of water. So you do not need to water them that often. Just water them once a month, and they do tolerate low light. Obviously, the more light you give them, the better they will do. Okay, and up next, I would say is probably my favorite type of plant. I love these little guys because of their heart-shaped leaves. So these are the Philodendrons. So this is a green version. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys all the versions first, and then I'm gonna tell you their lighting and water requirements. So up next is the Philodendron micans. This has got to be one of my favorites from the Philodendrons. I just love how velvety it is on the leaves. And then on the back side of the leaves, you can tell they're kind of like a purplish brown color. They are super, super, super gorgeous, and they grow really fast. And then up next is the neon Philodendron. This is another favorite of mine of the philodendrons. It's just so gorgeous and so neon. I freaking love it. It's honestly like a statement piece in a room. Like whenever someone comes over, they automatically attract to this neon philodendron just because it's so bright green. It just stands out. So this is a really good plant. And then up next is the Brazil philodendron. So this is kind of like a mix of the neon and the green version. And as you can see, every pattern on the leaf is very unique, which is something I absolutely love about this plant. So this is another great philodendron. So all of these philodendrons, they can definitely tolerate low light. They do require a little bit more light than your Sansevierias and your Zizzi plants, but they are still able to tolerate low light. I have a lot of these guys in a very dark corner of my room and they are doing just fine. The only version I would say that requires a little bit more light than the other philodendrons are the neon philodendron, just because the less light you give this guy, its leaves will start to revert back to the dark green color. So you want to make sure this guy gets a good amount of sunlight to keep it very bright green. But if you don't really care about the bright green, how bright green it is, how neon it is, then that's okay to put it in a lower light setting. Same thing with the Brazil philodendron. So the more sunlight you get, the more neon the leaves will be, and the less sunlight you give it, the more green it will be. So those are the philodendrons, and watering requirements are a little bit more than your Sansevierias and your Zizzi plants. So your philodendrons, you want to water whenever the soil is dry. And that is going to be different for every person. For example, I use terracotta and I use cactus soil, so I water these guys probably like once a week, once every week and a half. It's just all going to depend on what kind of pot you have as well as what kind of soil you are using. But these guys definitely do not water until the soil is completely dry. So I would recommend getting like a water meter just to make sure you're not overwatering these little guys. But other than that, they are super low maintenance and they are super fast growers. So if you're an instant gratification person, philodendrons are for you. The Zizzi plants and the Sansevierias grow a lot slower. So you're not gonna see too much growth. It doesn't matter if you give it a lot more light, they are just slower growing plants, but philodendrons and the next couple of ones that I'm going to mention are very fast growing plants. So up next is the Scindapsus. So this is another favorite of mine. So I personally love Scindapsus because it's velvety. As you can probably tell, I love velvety plants. So this one's velvety. It's called the Scindapsus pictus, also known as the silvery Ann or the satin pothos. Although it is not a pothos, it's a Scindapsus. That's just its common name. So this guy can definitely tolerate low light settings. I, again, have it in the darkest corner of my room. And it's doing just great. It's putting off a lot of growth. So I can only imagine what it will do if I give it more sunlight, But as of right now, I'm gonna keep it in that corner because I have nowhere else to put it and it looks great in that one corner of my room. Again, the watering requirements are very similar to the philodendrons, where you water when the soil is completely dry. You definitely do not want to overwater these guys. So just make sure you feel the soil or use the soil water meter, and then just water whenever the soil is dry. Sorry, I can't talk today. I feel like I'm tripping over my words or something. Okay, so up next is a very popular houseplant. I'm sure you have seen this somewhere at a restaurant, at your grandma's house, your mom's house, your dad's house, someone's house. So these are very, very common plants. So these are Pothos, and this is actually the marble Pothos variety. This is a little bit more difficult to come by than just the regular green Pothos or the golden Pothos, but this guy will thrive in low light situations. Obviously, the more light you give them, the better they're gonna do. I'm gonna continue to say that throughout this whole video. But yes, they will do well in low light settings. And then the watering requirements are water whenever the soil is dry. So just make sure you're not overwatering your pothos. So water when it is dry. Okay, so up next I have the golden pothos. So this is very common. This is probably the variety that you've seen at someone's home. So I actually got this as a cutting from my mother, who has it on top of her chimney, just kind of trailing down. It is so huge. And again, that is in a very low light setting in her living room where she has it. And I also have mine in a pretty low light setting in my house, and it is doing great. It started off as a cutting, so it's a lot smaller than all of these other guys. But he is thriving, and again, water when the soil is dry for all these pothos. I feel like for most plants that we get when you're a new plant parent, or you give someone a plant, is that we tend to overlove plants, and that's totally normal. I understand that we want to care for them and we don't want them to kill us, but sometimes loving them a little bit too much can actually do that. So make sure you're not watering every single day. Water when the soil is dry for most plants, at least all the plants that I have mentioned in this video. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my low maintenance house plants for a lot of new plant beginners. Feel free to comment below any questions that you may have, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Bye guys, I'll see you in the next one.